This week, I'm talking to Tate Huffard, founder of Best Day Brewing. All that and more coming up on Beer in Front. Sometimes the beer in front of you is the best one yet. This is Beer in Front. Every week, I'll talk to people in and around the beer world and get their stories all about beer. That's Beer in Front, and it's coming up now. Welcome to episode 301 of Beer in Front. I'm your host, Dave Zalatoris, and Beer in Front is a charter member of the Beer Media Group. This week, I'm talking to Tate Huffard. He's the founder of Best Day Brewing. They're not just making NA beer, they're making good beer, period. I like everything that I've had from them so far. I think it's really good stuff. Stay tuned for that. That was a lot of fun talking to Tate. Also, and I'll include it in the show notes, he was kind enough to send over a code. So if you want to order Best Day for yourself, use the code in front and you could save yourself some money. That's only if you're going to order it online, but you could pick it up all over. Like here in Chicago, you can get it at Binny's, you can get it at your bottle shops. I've even seen it at Target. It's widely available, but if you're going to order online, make sure you use the code. Save yourself a couple bucks. Over the weekend on the Midwest Beer Show with Rod J. from Rod J. Beer Ventures, we talked about how the beer world has changed since 2020. We had some really good guests on. Talked to Matt Gasiak from the Brewers Association. We also talked to Jeremiah Zimmer from Hop Butcher, and also Tucker Robinson from Wild Edge Brewing Collective. Nice to hear the opinions and thoughts from the Brewers Association, from brewery owners as well. That was good. You could catch it on YouTube. I don't know if you could still get it on Instagram, but you could definitely check it out on YouTube. Later on in the week, I'm going to include it as a bonus podcast episode. So if you listen to this, the audio portion of it, I'll have it available in a couple days for you to grab. But that was a lot of fun talking to Rod J. We always get together every couple weeks for the Midwest Beer Show. But this time we had guests and it was a lot of fun. So be sure to check that out. I have some exciting news. Sit down. If you're driving, you're sitting down already, or if you're on public transportation. But if you're not, have a seat. I have exciting news. I finally have my Zima. My buddy Ruben from work shot me a text while I was off last week and said, Dave, I have it. So I'm going to get it from him this week once we're both back, days off and all of that. So I'm going to be getting my Zima and I'll be doing a review shortly, probably on video, but I'll include the audio here. But at long last, I have my Zima. I'm not going to do the news on this episode. I didn't really see a lot in my travels, so we're going to skip that segment. I am going to have 2 reviews later on some additional Best Day Brewing beers. So you're going to have a couple reviews, the interview with Tate, all that's coming up. I'll be honest, non-alcoholic beer 20 years ago used to be one of those things you'd politely sip and then go find something else. It just wasn't part of the conversation if you were into beer. But that's changed a lot, and today's guest is a big reason why. Tate Huffard is the founder of Best Day Brewing, a company that's not just making non-alcoholic beer, they're making good beer, period. And that's the key. If you could hand something to a craft beer drinker and they don't immediately say, ugh, you're onto something. We're going to get into how Tate went from idea to building a brewery focused entirely on non-alcoholic beer, the challenges of brewing a non-alcoholic beer, but still keeping flavor, and why this category is exploding right now. Is it health? Is it lifestyle? Is it just better beer? Which is probably all of the above. Whether you're all in on non-alcoholic, you're curious about it, or you're on the fence, this is going to be an interesting conversation about where beer is going. Tate, thank you so much for talking today. I really appreciate it.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime. Like you have an interesting path into beer. What was that light bulb moment that led you to start Best Day Brewing?
Yeah, well, it was one of those paths that first and foremost started as a consumer of beer, a longtime consumer of beer. And I don't come from the world of beer. I have not been a brewer. I wasn't a home brewer, but I've always loved the very special place that beer holds in our culture of bringing people together, right? And my journey to this really is one of geography and location too. Like I grew up in the Northeast and kind of was on this track in the Northeast and found myself in New York in the world of finance. And one day as I was kind of putting on the suit and choking up the tie, it just hit me like I got to get out of here. And I had some buddies who had moved out to San Francisco Bay Area. So this is around 2010. And they were also working their tails off, but then they were doing all this cool stuff, right? Whether it was surfing or the great music scene, a great food scene, or skiing, whatever it was, like they were doing a lot of it. And I was like, I just got to get out there and I'll figure out the rest. Right. So I come out here and sure enough, go hook, line, and sinker on that whole lifestyle. And, as I mentioned earlier, just really loved the way that beer seemed to be like a magic element in all of that stuff. Right. It just like brought people together, whether you were talking about, after surfing beers in the parking lot or what you're drinking at a show or, a great restaurant, it was just beer was always a part of that mix. And I found in my 20s, at the time, the math was pretty simple. It's just like more, wake up in the morning, rinse, repeat, like go on and do more of it. And that all kind of for me started to change as I rounded the corner into my 30s. And then, you start throwing in little kids in the mix, you start throwing in a job with more responsibility. You want to wake up, you want to feel good. And I'm sure your listeners will relate to this. Like the thing that can really get in the middle of all that is a bad hangover,
Oh,
right? It just like all of a sudden, all your plans for that day just kind of go out the window, right? And it's a day of like recovering. And so I was noticing that, like, man, I'm doing less and less of the stuff that I moved out here to do, not more and more of it. Like play that tape out.
mhm.
And so for the first time in my life, I was kind of like paying attention to, the way that I was consuming alcohol. And so, I think like a lot of people, that relationship is particularly acute in like Monday to Thursday. And so that was my jumping off point, right? Like, can I stop drinking during the week? And so, I was finding these alternatives like, your sparkling waters and your kombuchas and stuff like that. And they're great products, right? But they're not at all like drinking a beer. And like no group of buddies have ever gotten together in a parking lot after surfing and had a bunch of kombuchas. Like despite what the commercials would tell you, it doesn't happen, right? For a particular reason, right? And that's like that beer holds that special place in our culture, and it's you cannot replace it. And so though I was feeling like better and better as I was not drinking, I was also noticing this big trade-off, right? That like I'm staying home, I'm less social, I'm not getting out there with my friends, I'm not getting out there going out to dinners and happy hours and stuff like that. And that felt like a really tough trade-off. And so, the very serendipitous thing that happened in my life is, that my father-in-law would come over. He's from Minnesota. He'd come out to visit us. He was your typical O'Doul's drinker, right? Who kind of left the drinking market very reluctantly and went to O'Doul's because there was no other option, right? And so he'd come over for dinner and he'd bring over a six pack of O'Doul's and he would kind of choke down one and park the other five in my fridge. And so the light bulb moment for me, to get directly to your question, is like opening up the fridge and seeing the beers that I love drinking, which might have, 4%, 6%, 8% alcohol, and seeing those next to the O'Doul's, it occurred to me that like, man, I always think about like, what is the right beer for the right occasion, right? It's like matching the beer to the moment. And wherever I am on that spectrum, I want a great tasting beer and I want a fun brand. Like I want a brand that actually stands for something. And when I see those next to the O'Doul's, like no wonder no one's drinking this stuff. Like the product is awful and the brand is non-existent, right? It's like as a matter of fact, it's worse than that. because when you're kind of seen holding one of these, I'm picking on O'Doul's, right? But you could
Yeah.
sub in 5 different brands that are part of this old guard, right? It was a negative signal to the world. Like, it doesn't get worse than that in the world of consumer products. And so, the ignorance is bliss moment for me was just saying, well, man, why can't we have a great tasting beer that happens to have no alcohol? Like, there's a really cool story to tell around lifestyle that has nothing to do with sobriety, right? It has nothing to do with abstinence. That could be a component of it. But in
Mhm.
terms of like how that beer would fit into my life and my friend's life and my wife and her friends and her sisters and there's everyone, that's a lifestyle choice, right? And the point is, like, it has to be great beer, and I'm sure we're going to get into that later.
Like you mentioned, like O'Doul's and Sharps is the other one. I mean, you don't want to yuck anyone's yum, but yeah, those just were not good. You could make an amber. I remember one of them came out with an amber, and people are like, "Oh, this tastes better." I'm like, "No, it doesn't. It's just a
Yeah.
little more caramel malt, or they probably
Ex-
put food coloring in it. It's not any
oh yeah,
better."
yeah, exactly. And that category like had been around, since Prohibition, right? It wasn't a new concept. This idea of non-alcoholic beer. What was definitely new was that, like, the idea that this would be something that people would actually choose to drink, and that it would focus, like, first and foremost on quality and brand experience.
I don't see anybody reaching for those two brands that we mentioned. They're not drinking that because they want to. They're drinking it because they probably have to. Where with
Exactly.
Best Day Brewing, and there's a few others out there, like
For
you're
sure.
deliberately reaching for those because it's good tasting and all of that. Like the stigma about non-alcoholic beer is what we were talking about. They lacked body, they lacked flavor. You've managed to avoid that with Best Day Brewing. What's been the biggest technical hurdle that you and your team have had to solve to come up with a beer that has a ton of flavor and still be non-alcoholic?
Yeah, well, lots of them. And in order to, like I said earlier, like, for me, coming into this category, the line in the sand was really clear. Like, the world did not need a slightly better O'Doul's, right? And that wasn't going to get me excited. That wasn't going to get, this, what I had pictured as an opportunity in terms of convincing beer drinkers that, like, this should fit into their life. No one was going to jump for that. So if this was a nights and weekends project for me for years, right? And over those years, as I was telling people, man, I got this idea, like, it's non-alcoholic beer, right? They look at me like I have 3 heads, right? So first of all, convincing people that this was going to be something, and that this was something worth not only paying attention to, but we'll get into this, investing in, right, and devoting time, energy, and resources into this idea. It was almost like unfathomable at the time. But there were some bright spots early on, right, in this world of, like, can we make a great tasting beer that happens to have no alcohol? It took years of development. We have tried, and we will continue to try as things evolve, because now it's a real category. You got to pay attention to it. You got to have a strategy, and as a result, the technology, the techniques, and the available materials are getting better and better. Like, every month, right, we're making huge improvements. But the kind of paradigm shift in terms of the development of best day beers really had to do with this idea that everything that we love in a beer is the result of fermentation. Like, fermentation is the magical process that creates the aromas, the flavors, the mouthfeel, like all the things that you love about a beer. So we had to protect the integrity of that chemical miracle, and we do. We brew full strength beers. We make great beers that their alcohol version never sees the light of day, right? But they're great beers on their own. And then we have a process of extracting the alcohol using very low temperatures and pressure, like essentially membrane technology.
Okay.
And there's some pre-production, post-production techniques that we have developed in house that make that whole process unique to us And that has been years and years and years and years of fine tuning. That basic equation, right, of yes, fermentation and the technique and the technology, right, to be able to maintain that fermentation process and yet, yield a product that doesn't have any alcohol at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That was the magic.
If you ever have those full strength ones come out to light, you can call it like worst morning instead of best day or something. Yeah.
There might be an April Fool's joke in there somewhere.
Well, I'm going to bust open right now because you're making me thirsty. This is the newest one, Wild American, Classic American Pills. I'm like so excited about this because a lot of some of your competitors, and I won't name them, I think a lot of the things that I've had from them, they're hidden behind this big wall of hops.
Well
this
said.
big citrus. Said. With the Pilsner, you can't hide. It's right there. So I'm really stoked to crack this open and try it. So while I'm doing that, what can you tell us about this Wild American?
Yeah, so that's our Wild American. So this has been a years and years long project, and it's just so fun how a lot of worlds are colliding here. But like you said, right, when you look at the beer shelf, right, there's a lot of fruit. There's a lot of hops. There's a lot of stuff, right, that gets added to most non-alcoholic beers in order to cover up, right? Let's just face it. Like you're masking a lot of, off flavors, flavors that you would associate with those kind of old guard brands, like that old NA experience. And so people just pile in the flavors, right? So when you think about this like classic American pills style, you said it really well. There's nowhere to hide, right? So it's a very, very simple beer, but in the world of NA beers, like simple equals hard. That was the hardest thing to do, right? So that for us was like our mountaintop. And it took a lot of years to get there. Again, we don't push beers out in the world that we wouldn't enjoy, 100% ourselves. But it just, in terms of the worlds colliding, right? This American classic style Pilsner happened to align with, the 250th anniversary of our country. And, it also happened to align with like, as the world of NA beers has evolved, right? And we can get into this, but what people are realizing is like, it's all about the occasions, right? And part of the reason why the NA beer category is going the way that it is people are realizing like, man, I can have this beer at fill in the blank. And that's an unlock for me, right? Like how good is that? I get to have the beer feeling and enjoy a beer, cracking open a beer. And it's a new occasion. It might be a lunch beer. It might be at a little league game. It might be in your backyard, right? As you're, smoking a brisket or something like that. And so, this beer comes out now and it's going to be, just a key part of our summer programming. We're celebrating the backyard barbecues. We're celebrating like, smoking meats, right?
Yeah,
being
absolutely.
able to enjoy lots of beer as you're doing it, and then to actually be able to enjoy the meat that you've just spent 8 hours smoking and not have to go take a nap. So it's about Americana. It's about being outside. It's about enjoying this like great American non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah, I'm chasing a cold, so the aroma smells good. I'll have to do another one in a couple days just in case I'm missing something. But it smells like your just classic beer that we all grew up on. We stole from our parents' fridge back in the day. I love the taste on this. Like you get, sorry, I'm having another sip. Like you get a little hops. It's not like a hop bomb, but there's a little hop there.
Intentionally, right?
You get the malt. It's got a really good finish. I've noticed with some other NAs, it's not, I don't know if it's because they're using a different yeast or whatever, but there's like a weird off aftertaste, which I don't get from this at all. It has a nice, clean finish. Like this is definitely like you're watching a game or something like that, or you're mowing the lawn, whatever you're doing. Definitely kill this. And this is only 33 calories on this?
33 calories, right? Yeah. And if you think about the kind of the low end of the alcohol beer spectrum, right? That this is going head to head with. What we're able to do is dial up the flavors that you love, right? Because there's no alcohol in
Yeah.
it. And whereas those guys, in order to hit, calorie counts, carb counts, or whatever, they have that 4.5% alcohol base to it. So they're dialing down all the flavors that
Yeah.
you love. So in terms of an experience, right, you've got a third of the calories, all the flavor, and you don't miss the alcohol at all.
No. No, I would definitely it's 12:20 right here in Chicago. I have no problem pounding this down at lunchtime. I'm gonna have to throw some in my
well,
work bag and see what they
it's
tell me.
10:20 out
Yeah.
here. So
Yeah.
here's to a Monday morning, right?
Absolutely. What's a beer that you have in your lineup that you think would surprise like the craft beer drinker the most?
Well, it's a great question, and we've been very intentional about the way that we have built our lineup in order to do that, right? Because let's face it, we're fighting an uphill battle, and so we've got to be very mindful and intentional about the products that we're putting out there, and each one is really meant to do that. We don't have a prolific, every week we come out with a new SKU type of lineup. And again, that's a very intentional choice here that we're making. So, when I think about our lineup, like if you're if you're looking for that hop experience and you are not expecting to get that from the world of NA, we specifically came out with our Galaxy Ripple, which is our, Imperial, and it is the full hop experience and then some, right? So then kind of working the way back, we've got our hazy IPA, which is, for the people that like that tropical hazy beer. I mean, you're going to be blown away by it, right? Our West Coast is that very traditional Cascade hop, down the middle IPA experience. And our Kolsch, our Kolsch was our first beer. It is our most popular beer. I would say it's not because, that's the one that is most people need to be convinced by. I think that just has to do with the incredible drinkability of that beer, and just, most people want that lighter beer experience. The reason why it's a Kolsch is like it's fun.
Yeah.
It's got that flavor profile where you're drinking a light, crisp, refreshing beer, but then it's got those subtle notes that are like, wow, okay, someone actually put quality ingredients, care, intentionality into this beer. And for that reason, it's like, on the lighter end of the spectrum, it is a beer that absolutely converts people into the NA beer category.
Would that be the one, like, say, you're talking to somebody and, they don't know you, they don't know what you do. If you were going to hand somebody a Best Day Brewing beer, okay, here you go, try this. Tell me what you think.
For sure. And I've been
Yeah.
doing that for years and years and
Mhm.
years, right? And we were, I think we were the first one to push into the Mexican lager with lime and salt. And we make, it's called Electrolime. It's our Electrolime beer. And, starting from about this time of year through October, it cranks. I mean, it is such a refreshing beer to have out at the beach, at the pool. So, that one in our lineup is, absolutely a staple.
Yeah, that's a great beer. Like, my wife is not a beer drinker, but I was having some of that the other day. I'm like, hon, just trust me, have a sip.
Yeah.
She's like, oh no, that's
It's so
good.
funny
Yeah.
you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't tell you the amount of people that have, and I actually don't have the data on it. I don't have a statistic on this in terms of like how many people, like what part of the growing of the NA beer pie is this, but there are so many people who for their whole life haven't been beer drinkers, right? And there could be gluten sensitivities going on. That's definitely a part of it, but it's not the only part of it. But for whatever reason, it could be the flavor, it could be the actual being able to hold a beer and like participate in our culture in social events, holding a beer, that matters a lot. And now we give people the freedom to do that, and there are a whole lot of people who have never enjoyed beer who all of a sudden get to enjoy beer. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, that was good. You mentioned the Galaxy Ripple. I think that was the first beer that I tried from you. I saw that. I might have been Target of all places. So I know you're pretty much out
Yeah.
there. I'm like, oh, let me give this one a try and see. But yeah, that one's outstanding as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they take a lot of years, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of love goes into those beers before they ever see the light of day.
Well, the last couple of years, there's been this huge growth in the category. What do you think is like driving that? Is it lifestyle? Is it health? Is it something else?
First and foremost, I think for as far as the category has come, I do think that the perception is still different than the reality. I think the perception is still one of sobriety. Like, am I in or am I out? Right? Am I a drinker or am I a non-drinker? In which case, I'm an NA beer, drinker. So that's still the perception. The reality couldn't be farther from that. What we know about this category, 92% of the people that are drinking NA beers, 92 are still drinking.
Yeah.
Myself included, right? They're just drinking differently. And, when you look at how this category is building, over half of the category of the growth in the category is coming from non-beer occasions, right? So we're talking about incremental. Like, we are here to sell more beer. Our role in doing that is making exceptional beer, right? That kind of turns the category as it has been known on its head. We have a really fun brand, right? That is not a founder sobriety story. That is not targeted to one specific subset of what's going on here. Like, you can look at the side of our can. We have a lot of fun with that. There's a laundry list of people, right? And that's the idea. Beer's for everyone, right? Beer is about bringing those people together. And so as we show up and we do that, we are selling more beer in more moments throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. And that is, I think, a very large part why the trajectory that we've seen, as we like to say, this is a tectonic shift in consumer behavior, right? And we have gone from 0.3% of total beer, which is what non-alcoholic beer was forever. It was just kind of bumping along, totally stagnant. No one paid attention to it. It was not exciting. And now we're approaching 3%, but, in certain retailers that have really got behind this, we're knocking on 20% of beer. And that is a really exciting thing that's happening. I think all of this, of course, there's a variety of reasons why this is happening. I think first and foremost, it's the quality, right? You have to give people a quality product. And if you make a quality accessible to them, good things are going to happen, right? That's a recipe that has played out time and time again in the world of like wellness, called general wellness. But you could look at it in our food. Think about what organic used to be, at the turn of the millennium, right? It was this out of reach, like very inaccessible thing, but there's no doubt they were quality products. And now it's ubiquitous, right? People really care about what they put into their body. I think exercise has gone the same way. I think sleep tracking, all of this stuff is part of the same movement, right? And it's not to say you have to be Peter Attia in order to be, in this movement, but it's all part of the same thing. They're all cousins with each other, right? And it's people heading in a direction where they want to feel good and they want to be empowered to make choices. And, coming back to the top of the point, like, the only way they're going to make that choice, they could have made this choice 70 years ago and gone to some of these old guard brands. They didn't. Why? Because the quality of the product was awful. And now it is just fundamentally different, right? So you empower people to make that move, and they're going to.
Yeah, like, I obviously, because I host a beer show, I still drink beer, but I don't have to have a second one. I'm like, you know what? Let me grab an NA and I could go to bed and get
Zebra
a decent night's sleep. Yeah. There's no reason that, you can't do both. And I think that's an exciting component too, where yes, you can go out, you could have your IPA, you could have your barrel aged stout, if you will, but I don't need to have a second. So I could still have, a Best Day Brewing beer. I could have this Pils. Maybe I would have the Pils before the barrel aged stout because I really don't want to wreck the palate. But you don't have to have two. So that's the thing that I enjoy the most about these, great new products.
Yeah, and these things don't happen overnight, right? So the really amazing, right, to see the distribution landscape change, evolve. You see the retail landscape evolve, where this started in kind of the natural food corners of the world, like Whole Foods, and they did such a good job representing this category, right? That's now spilling over into, the Targets and the more, mainstream grocers. It's also the same things happening in the world of, bars and restaurants, the on-prem, right? And that doesn't happen first, right? That happens after things have been validated, because they don't want to take risks. They don't want to, or take unnecessary risks, I should say. But what they've seen, because of, in large part, because of the behavior that you're describing, is, if they lean into that section of the menu, that's good business for them, because it could be, 30%, 50% of their customers on a given night don't really want to drink, right? They might have one, but then they're switching to water, or they might be at water or soda the whole time. And, the more that they lean into that section of the menu with good tasting non-alcoholic beers, with good tasting non-alcoholic cocktails, those, they're subbing out water, right? They're making money on that.
Yeah.
And that's good. It's good for everyone. It's good for the customer. It's good for the business. It's good for the distributors. So I am nothing but encouraged. And I still think we are in the earliest innings of this whole NA movement.
The one thing that, I've talked to other people about it, and the one thing that I think is missing, and I don't know if this is something that, might be something in the future. Even if you go to a brewery per se, and you want to grab something non-alcoholic, they're handing you a can. Do you ever see a time where a place could have a draft line of that? I think
sure.
It would be so cool. Like, if I'm not drinking, I'm the driver for the night, but I can get something in a pint glass instead of, oh, well, here's your can of what have you.
For sure. It's happening. We're already in early phases of rolling that out. We're doing it very choicefully. It comes down to velocity. There is a huge safety thing to care about there. There's no ethanol in our beer, right? We don't put additives in our beer. So it is a very, again, like a very intentional thing that we're doing there, because we have to be rock solid there in terms of customer safety. And so the short answer to your question is yes, right? As all the things that we've been talking about dial up in terms of velocity, in terms of customer engagement, that yields more opportunities, right? And draft is absolutely one of them. We are going in that direction.
Awesome.
And it's like, it's all about the experience, right? It's like this idea that, like, you take that dynamic of, like, am I in or am I out, right? And previously that had been there's a very, very big wall in between that decision. And it's hard, right? It's like, I got terrible brands on the other side of that wall. I got terrible products, and it's just a completely negative experience. Well, the way to get rid of that wall is by making it a great experience. You make great products, great brands, have draft beer. You make it everywhere that you go. It's in your favorite bar. It's in your favorite restaurants. It's in, we've done partnerships with airlines. We've done partnerships with, we just did a major partnership with a university. We've done partnerships with hospitals, hospitality groups. We should do hospitals, but that's probably coming, right?
I don't know if you could hand somebody something called Best Day if you're in a hospital. I don't know.
I don't know, but it's like in these places, like we've done, work cafeterias, and any place that someone's, sitting down to a meal, whether it's, lunch or dinner, they should be able to have a great tasted beer, right?
Absolutely.
So why not? That's kind of the approach that we take.
Yeah, I'm waiting to get called into HR when I bust open an NA in the lunchroom, having my lunch
it kind
at
of
work.
feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, since COVID, like the craft beer market, it's becoming hyper local. And many breweries that used to be national players, they're now nowhere near as popular because that's all shifted to a local market. The NA category is dominated by national companies like yourself. How do you see the market shaping in the next couple of years? Because I know here in Chicago, one of our big breweries just released an NA flat of their flagship just a few weeks ago. So do you see the market shifting at all?
It will absolutely continue to shift. I mean, just the fact that, large breweries are releasing non-alcoholic versions of their flagship tells you a lot, right? When I started on this journey, I get laughed out of the room by those guys. Like no one took NA seriously. It was it was a joke, right? It wasn't even something to consider. And now they're putting out NA versions of their flagship. So absolutely, this thing will continue to evolve. I don't know if it would go at some point. It'll go local. I would imagine as these tools become accessible, the tools needed to make great tasting non-alcoholic beer. It's very, very easy to make a terrible non-alcoholic beer. And I hope that the hyper local version doesn't race to get in by going through that route of low quality beers, because I think that would do the whole category a massive disservice. I think that at the national level right now, there's still the phase of life that we're in is finding a voice, right? Letting people experience this category and find their brand. I think it's been proven out that certainly what this thing is not is it's a sobriety journey only. That, as I said, like that is a very nothing makes me happier than getting the calls, the emails, and the texts from people that are like, I chose not to drink, and that was a really terrible experience, and you have made that experience awesome. Like that is just music to my ears, right? But in terms of what the dynamics going on here, that's a very small subset of what's happening. So I think at the national level, people are wrestling with like, okay, what does this thing mean to me? Like, how am I going to engage with these brands? And that needs to happen. That needs to shake out before things go hyper local, in my opinion.
Do you ever envision a time where you might open a tap room?
For sure. Yeah, we have a lot of fun creative concepts for tap rooms that are non-alcoholic because it's kind of like the point about the hospital. It's like, why not? We could do these in really fun places. We could have a lot of fun with them. We're having some fun this summer. I'll let you know when it happens, but we've got delivery trucks of our own that are going to be rolling out to let's say non-traditional beer places,
Okay.
and letting people have some best days.
Absolutely. It sounds good. You definitely, like, we were talking earlier about like the market growing, and I kind of like, I go to my local bottle shop, small little bottle shop here. 5 years ago, they might have had something on the bottom shelf all dusty and all of that. And now they have pretty much half an aisle is NA beers. And I think that's great. And it's all different companies, your big players in the world. You have your international ones that are out there.
Yeah.
I saw, breweries in Belgium are coming out with NA versions of their Belgian style. I mean, it's such an exciting time, as a beer drinker and a consumer. It's like, there's so much out there, what to choose from now.
That's totally right. That's totally right. And for the, craft beer drinker of the world, I would just say, give it a shot, right? Like you have every right to be skeptical, every right. Because we've got decades and decades that are working against us here. But, I think you said it right. I was like, go down to your bottle shop, see what's out there. And, I hope you're not disappointed.
You were talking before, you're always coming up with new ideas. Are we going to see more styles in the future, like sours or stouts, or
for sure,
even something barrel aged that you could do with cutting out the alcohol?
Yeah, well, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? We're just going to be very choiceful about it, but all those things are on our radar. We're working on all of them. We're having a lot of fun doing it. You're going to see more beers from us this year, limited release kind of stuff. And we're we've got a lot ahead of us. We are, like you said, national now, which means we're very busy these days, and so we've got to balance showing up everywhere and doing a really good job through our distributors and our retailers with, having the right amount of product. But we really see those types of things, whether it's the sour or the barrel aged beer, like there's a really key role there that we want to be continuously pushing the envelope of what's possible in this new fun world of NA beers.
Well, let me get you out of here with the non-beer question. What's the one thing that's in your life outside of Best Day that
Mm.
inspires you daily?
Well, I have to give my home out here credit, because it's the thing that launched this contrarian idea to begin with. I still live in the Bay Area. I draw a lot of inspiration from this place. I've got four little kids, so like I would say my surfing days are not as many as they used to be. But I get out there with my buddies. We enjoy drinking beers. That's still very much a key part of where I draw inspiration from. So yeah, I give props to the Bay Area.
Well, and my wife is out there now too. So I'm stuck here in Chicago. Everyone's in the Bay Area. But Tate, I appreciate it so much. You guys have to check out Best Day Brewing. They have a mix pack if you want, a mixed 12 pack. So if you want to try a couple different ones, they're
Yeah,
good. I probably have 4 or 5, maybe. Everyone I've had, I'm not just blowing smoke. It's really good beer. It's not NA beer. It's beer. It's just beer,
yeah.
period.
Well
They're
said.
all really good.
Appreciate
So
that.
Tate, I appreciate you coming on, sir.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, we'll talk
Great
to
to
you
be
later.
with you.
All right, the next beer from Best Day that I'm going to have is their Kolsch. This is kind of like, the Pilsner when I was talking to Tate, that you can't hide stuff in a Kolsch. You can't hide things in a Pilsner. Has to be good on its own. Pours really nice, nice light color, good foam, good carbonation on this. It smells like a classic beer. I mean, I'm getting malt, I'm getting a little hops. It just smells like your typical beer smelling beer, which is what everyone loves. Let's give it a taste. Outstanding. Tastes like a beer should. Good finish to this. I get a tiny little bit of bitterness. There's not a lot because it's a Kolsch. There's malt. Good finish to this. I'm almost picking up, let me give it one more sip. Almost has, I don't know what hops they use. It almost has like a very faint, like citrus feel towards the end. I'm digging it. I think this is really good, like their Pilsner. I'm gonna do the final one coming up next. So stay tuned for that. But my review of the Kolsch, I think it's a winner. If you see it, grab it, put it in the cart. All right, the final one that I'm gonna have from the Best Day Brewing Classic Variety Pack is their Electro Lime. This is a beer with, as you may have guessed from the title, has lime and it has sea salt in it. Looks really good, nice light color, really good foam on this. Yeah, I get the lime right up front out of the aroma. I think the smell is really good, but let's give it a taste. That's nice. Get the lime. I get a little of the salt, but the lime is what hits me right up front. Good flavor to this. Definitely get the malt there. Excellent beer. This is a great beer for the summer. You just want to crush something. This is good. You don't want to get messed up. It's a great beer. So all three that I've had from the Classic Variety Pack, the Wild American, the Kolsch, and this are excellent. I've talked about it before in the beginning of the podcast. If you use the code in front, if you're ordering online, save yourself some money. I like all three of them. I'm not blowing smoke. I think these are really good beers, something that I'm going to pick up and keep in my fridge. But if you see this Electro Lime from Best Day Brewing, you know what to do. You got to put it in the cart. That's going to wrap things up for this edition of Beer in Front. I thank you for listening. Once again, I want to thank Tate Huffard from Best Day Brewing. That was cool talking to him. Order online. I'll include the link in the show notes. Use the code INFRONT and save yourself some money. I'll talk to you next week. Remember, sometimes the beer in front of you is the best one yet.